What's bad behavior at a convention? Uh, by this, I mean, everybody. When a convention is a celebration, you're there, you're immersed in the culture, you're immersed in the product, and if you're a creator, it's kind of a celebration. You get to do a victory lap for all the hard work you did. And when you're taking that lap, you like to drink or do some blow or who knows what. um, and sometimes that leads to trouble, as you might expect. Hey everybody, this is Perch. I do these videos, too many of them, to be honest. I mean, you know how if you ever watch like Tosh Point oh every now and then he'll put on he's like this YouTuber has over 2,000 videos on this stupid topic, and then like the reaction you're supposed to get from people is like, oh, what a loser with that many videos. So when YouTube, pointed out to me that I think I crossed the 600 video threshold after a little more than a year. Maybe I've got too many videos up here. But how am I going to make all these millions of dollars? Anyway, I don't know. Well, whatever. So conventions are a funny thing because you've got, I think, two colliding principles coming together. So first off, a convention by many in the comic industry is seen as a place to get together, meet some of your colleagues. Remember, the majority of creators and people in the industry that you see, they don't see each other. In fact, you'd be shocked at how many people just haven't met, each other. They haven't met creators other than by phone calls or other things. When a writer works with an artist, it's generally through phone call or maybe through Skype or through Zoom or something like that. They often don't meet each other. And so when you're going to this convention, not only are you being celebrated, you're a creator, and this is kind of like a big party thrown for you. Maybe you're on a panel, but you definitely you're going to have people coming to your table wanting to do autographs. It's a happy moment, unless you put a table up and nobody comes for autographs. That's like the sad trombone moment. But anyway, but mostly people are there. They're excited to see you, and then you're meeting up with friends that you've had but haven't actually got to meet in person, or maybe they're people you have met in person, but you get to see them like once, twice a year, and it's a feeling of celebration. It's a feeling of a festival. A post-corona world, everybody will have 6 foot distancing, so that'll take the edge off of it a little bit. But if, in the past, you go to San Diego Comic Con, it's a wild show. The New York Comic Con, any of these, it's crazy town. And the tricky part is that when you're celebrating, you like to drink, you like to let loose, you like to treat yourself. There was a writer that I knew from the 80s. Sorry, wrote in the 80s. I knew him in the 90s. And he would talk about how when he goes to conventions, he liked to treat himself to a stripper. And I get it. At the same time, I don't get it because, I mean, why? It just seemed like a weird thing to like 3 or 4 times a year. And I mean, the reality, I'm sure he was seeing strippers more than that, but 3 or 4 times a year, it's like, I'm going to comic convention and I'm going to cut loose a little bit and I'm going to treat myself to a stripper. That's a weird, it just seems weird to me. I don't know. Maybe I mean, just go to a stripper every week. I mean, what does a convention have to do with any of it? But anyway, this was kind of his thing. And I remember that other creators, other people, other artists were like, yeah, when we come to these things, we're going to really tie one off. We're going to really cut loose. And the, cut loose almost became a game. I mean, many times, the innocent version of that were a couple artists back during the kind of the pre-image days, just seeing, kind of drinking contest, who can pound down the most alcohol and who could, who could win in a little game of shots. Or it's also an unhealthy life. I stumbled over my words there, where you're going to go and you're going to stay up till like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and the logic that you give to yourself is, hey, these conventions don't happen all the time. It's a special event, so why not go and really stay out all night, really have a good time. But in the morning, you're in this crowded convention hall with kind of that sound coming at you and these brutal fluorescent lights and all the rest. And it's noisy, it's painful, it's dumb, and it's tough. for you as a creator, especially tough if you're super hungover or worse. I have seen. It's funny because I've traveled the world. I've seen lots and lots and lots and lots of different things. The most drug use I've ever seen in my life has been at comic conventions. And again, people are free to do whatever they want. This is not a video moralizing you on what you should do and what you should not. But I think if you take this convention as a party, and you're like, I'm going to do a few lines here, and I'm going to drink a lot, I'm going to get really hammered, and then the next day I'm going to sign autographs all day and just kind of muscle through that. By the way, if you go to a convention and you probably, this is answering a question I've had from people on the second or third day. Have you ever noticed that some creators just seem kind of pissed to be there? They're not in the best spirits. If you want to have a really good conversation with a creator, the first day is usually a good time to do that. And the second and third day, you really start to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, of the creators who are like, hey, I'm here, I'm ready to do some business, I want to have some conversation, sign some autographs, get some money. And the creators are like, okay, this is day 3 of the endurance test of can I last? And I think a lot of people misunderstood. Maybe they drank a lot, did a lot of drugs in college, and it was cool there because you were in a relatively small environment, you were with your own people. But again, in a convention, you've got thousands of people around you. You have demands. You have this kind of weird noise. When I say weird noise, you go into a convention hall. That almost white noise, that undercurrent of crowd, it gets to you after a time. And a lot of you talk to a lot of fans like, oh yeah, I just had to leave the hall for a little bit and go get some food or something else and come back in. Well, to some extent, a lot of the creators can't leave the hall. They're there to work. I mean, many do take breaks, but if you're in San Diego Comic-Con, there's no really taking a break. If you go there, you go into the hall, it's not like you can just walk outside and have a good time. I had a trick for a long time where I'd walk outside and I'd kind of circle around behind it to where the loading stuff was, and I would be able to get away from people. It was generally empty back there. They'd be doing some photo shoots and other things, but generally quiet, and that was always my go-to spot. And then around 2012, I want to say, everybody else found that spot, and by 2014, they were roping off that area where they weren't letting people back there, so you had to sneak in. But anyway, it's tough. Now, and all that doesn't include the one other weird mind F factor in all this, in that you are around your colleagues and your boss and other people of positions of authority. So if you're going to get really hammered, if you're going to get really wasted, if you're going to go out and do some drugs with some people, there is the added little bit of paranoia or concern that the person you're getting wasted with is going to then narc on you and cost you work, or you're going to do something stupid in a moment of inebriation, come on to somebody or insult somebody or yell at somebody. I mean, there's been a lot of ruined careers and wasted money, and just people who, the fame plus the noise plus the crowd plus the drugs plus the alcohol all kind of combine into a vicious swirl that could be really, really harmful. I've done videos on this in the past. But it is, and by the way, so the funny part in all this is I sometimes do these videos, I talk about these specific things, and I realize later, based on comments, what people tell me, that I skipped ahead where I needed to kind of explain the basics. I'm assuming a lot of people know how conventions operate, not just comic conventions, just any convention. If you go to CES, that's a Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas in January, I mean, that's like, that makes the San Diego Comic-Con look tiny. And that's where you've got like 100,000 people or more crammed into Las Vegas. And I think in general, everybody should feel very thankful that the biggest shows, the New York Comic-Con, the San Diego Comic-Con, that they're happening in New York and San Diego. I mean, if there was a major comic show that went down in Vegas, I mean, people would not survive that. There would be creators. I heard once upon a time from an editor that God, which editor? It doesn't matter. That they don't do shows. They didn't want to do a Comic-Con in Atlanta. And one of the reasons why they didn't want to do it in Atlanta is because Atlanta has a lot of strip joints and a lot of places that you can lose a lot of money very quickly on, quote unquote massage parlors, or those kinds of things. Atlanta is just a dangerous spot to do a convention, and I've always remembered that, and I always thought, man, I mean, Vegas would be like hold my beer to Atlanta of all places. So and there is a comic shop. By the way, there is a con in Vegas. There is a con in Atlanta, but not a major one. There's not like a massive show like the San Diego Comic Con. If there was, there would be dead bodies coming out of that thing. I mean, I'm just saying that would not work well. So, I mean, in general, conventions are this way, and conventions, whether they're comics or tech or pharmaceutical or an HR conference or whatever it is. I remember there was an HR conference down in San Diego, and I'm not in HR, but I was. Why was I there? I was in San Diego during the HR convention, and I don't remember why. There was some reason, and I remember going to Old Town, and there were people just getting, I mean, like super hammered. It's like the cork coming out of the bottle. You had HR people just stumbling into the streets, and it's such a lockdown job that it's like we are, it's what happens in San Diego stays in San Diego, and let's just get wrecked, and that's what would happen. But in general, cons, because I mentioned this before, they're a trap for a lot of people. It's the illusion that you're there to celebrate. It's the illusion that it's a party, and I've had so many creators tell me I didn't realize that somebody was watching. I didn't realize that if I cut loose, that it would come back to haunt me. I mean, how terrible is this? And maybe that is terrible, but it's also reality. You shouldn't be surprised by that. And I've given that advice to, I mean, all kinds of people. I mean, I think if there's one consistent thread I've told everybody, I mean, I remember telling this to Matt Fraction back more than 10 years ago of like, hey, my advice is don't get super wasted in a convention area because you're being seen, and people will remember. They'll take those mental notes, and they will come back at you later with the things that you get up to. So if you really want to have a good time, if you really want to party, you really want to celebrate and cut loose, do it a couple days before the convention, fly in early or stay late, but take yourself out of the spotlight and then truly relax and have a great time. If you do it in the middle of things, you're asking for it, because there's comics. You do not have 100% friends, no matter who you are in comics. I mean, there is nobody the nicest, most. I mean, Mike Ringo. I think, God, I can't. I don't. There wasn't a nicest guy that existed. There's so many Anna Sinti, Louis Simonson. Some of these people, like you would struggle to find anyone who would say a bad word about these people, and yet they're still there. You still do not have 100% friendship. There is going to be somebody there who would be watching out for missteps that these people do. For which case, none of them did anything that's really scandalous that I've ever known. But that's the key there. It's like, don't set yourself up to, don't put a noose around your neck, because somebody will happily put it there if you let them. And it's good common sense. And it's a shame, you are there to some extent to celebrate. The most successful comic creators I've ever seen go there, and they certainly do some celebration. They do some networking, but they also move some business. They use it as a way to expand their profile, build their universe, their bubble, and that's just what they do, and that's smart. But anyway, it's a temptation. It's a temptation, and 9 times out of 10 gets them, whether it's in comics or whether it's in anywhere. It's just how it goes. That's how the business works. Anyway, what about you? Do you have some thoughts, some stories, some feelings on the old world of the conventions? Do you go to conventions not in comics, and have you seen the same thing play out? I'm sure you have. Anyway, leave me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Like, subscribe, introduce to a friend, click bells for notifications if you like being notified. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.